Have you ever wanted to like classical music, but you just can't tap into why you don't? Let's find out what can make classical music so exciting or relevant to everyday people who don't have an expensive music education. On this channel, we cover topics like, where do I start with classical music? What should I be listening for? Why can't they just call it a song? And, this music is metal as f***. But today I just want to cover a really simple topic. Or maybe it's really complicated, I'm not sure. Why should I listen to classical music? Well, actually, classical music refers to a period in time, not a genre of music. Ugh, who cares? You know what I mean? Well, the answer is because classical music is freaking awesome. It can be painfully beautiful, or make you want to be the bravest person on the planet. It can teach you about history, or another person's culture, but my favorite reason is that it never gets boring. There's always something new to find in the music that you didn't know was there before. I know what you're thinking.
Handsome Adam, I get bored all the time listening to classical music.
Well, that might be because you've only heard the 300-year-old music written by Mozart, or you don't yet know what opus and concerto mean. Don't worry, soon you'll be on your way to having a playlist full of music that you can enjoy for the rest of your life. First, I think we have to establish some ground rules for listening. I don't think you can listen to classical music the same way you listen to popular music. People who already enjoy this music do so because they actively listen and give themselves to experiencing it and embracing it. This music was never meant to be listened to passively, and in fact most composers wrote their music to challenge the listener in one way or another. In other words, it's not always going to make you feel good, and putting it on while you study is, in my opinion, the worst way to listen to it. Chopin's Ballade No. 1. I love it. It has an elegance that is unmatched. But let's talk about the name. It's not good. It sounds pretentious. But let's break it down a little with some background. Chopin is the composer, and that's how he said his name, so people pay homage to him by using a silly accent when they say it, instead of just Chopin. Opus is a publication number. It basically tells us where chronologically the composer had the piece published. It only becomes important when you really love a certain composer and want to know in which part of his or her life they wrote a certain piece. But more importantly, the word ballade is a French word that means ballad, or a simple poem or song that is often romantic themed. But I like to think it sounds like ballet because this music is just so dance-like. But wait, Chopin wasn't French, he was Polish. Well, it turns out he spoke a lot of French, and made his work titles French because they mainly got played in France when he was alive. But what's cool is he kind of coined this word, ballade. No one really called pieces ballades before him, and he wrote 4 of them, which is why it's important that it's number 1. Okay, but who is Vladimir Horowitz? Well, he's my favorite pianist of this piece. Basically, there are a lot of pianists who play this piece, and they are all killer, because if they can play this piece, they are killer. And as you listen to more and more classical music, you'll start to like the tempo or styles of certain players, because even though it's written the same, everyone plays just slightly differently. Vladimir Horowitz was from Russia. He was hilarious and just a baller musician with a cunning wit. If you need any convincing, you should watch this clip in the information. Now, as an exercise, I want you to imagine joy while listening to the Ballade No. 1. Joy in the purest sense. More specifically, I want you to imagine dancing with the person you love, holding hands with arms outstretched, and swinging around one another. Then the music slows and becomes a little softer, and you gaze into each other's eyes and both realize simultaneously that you are feeling the same love for each other. And then the music picks up and does these fast little runs, and it feels like giddiness. You're both laughing at how ridiculous it is that you can be so happy. Isn't that just magnificent? And a kind of elegant beauty that you can't get from anything but a master composer writing for his favorite instrument, and a master pianist playing it after years of practice. Here's the same pianist Vladimir Horowitz playing another solo piano piece by a Russian composer about 80 years later. The piece is called Vers la Flamme, which means towards the flame. Listen to how this piece grows in intensity and has very little to do with beauty or even melody. The feeling here is danger or maybe intrigue, getting lost while you watch the flames of a campfire. I like to imagine that if you were a moth, this is the type of trance music that would accompany your little moth brain as you fly closer and closer to the light that will probably eventually kill you. Instead of melodies, there are some smaller thematic elements being used here that composers call motifs, and we can discuss that in another episode. Still, isn't Vers la Flamme just as intriguing and exciting as a beautifully joyous Ballade No. 1? Maybe even more so. Classical music isn't always just simply beautiful. It depicts characters and touches on emotions that no other music will get close to. In my opinion. Well, that's it for a first part of a two-part episode. If you want to keep listening, part 2 dives into some more contemporary pieces, and even a living composer. It will hopefully challenge you and bring you to an even deeper understanding and appreciation of concert music. I'll leave you with this. Don't just hear music, listen to it. And don't just listen to it, experience it live.